Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin. We're just going to wait a few more minutes for everyone to start rolling into the webinar. As we wait right now, I'm really interested to know where's everyone coming in from. Type in the chat what country you're joining in from. It'd be interesting to see. I'm based in Vancouver. Turkey. Wow. Anybody else? Yep, Arlene's based in Saskatoon. Quebec. Nice. Thailand. Interesting. I used to live in Thailand for about 6 years before in Chiang Mai. Super interesting. Indonesia, New Brunswick, Calgary. Wow. Very interesting. Yeah, Thailand was an amazing place to live in. I remember I went to school there, and I moved there with my family. And I when I retire, I definitely want to move back to Thailand. Thailand's been an amazing place to live in. Really great food. Yeah, for sure. Where's everyone else from? Type in chat. I see 25 people here. I've only seen 10 people type. Nikita from Brazil, Philippines. Arlene's from the Philippines as well. So, how are you doing today, Nikita? Thanks for joining. Good, good. From Jupiter. That's a first. From Nepal. Wow. Really interesting. So, yes, I am from originally from Korea. I came to Canada and then I moved to Thailand for a bit and then back to Canada. But I'm going to Brazil in a couple of weeks because my wife's family is from there. So it'll be an interesting time to actually go to the airport and have to deal with everything. So if you guys are interested, I'll share on our social media what the process is actually like going to another country during this time of COVID. And yes, kimchi is great. Kimchi is awesome. It's been a few minutes since everyone's joined, so I'm just going to get started with the webinar now. Just wanted to say thanks so much for joining. It looks like we have a really good mix of people from inside and outside Canada. I'm sure that everyone here today in different stages of their immigration progress. And today's webinar is going to be incredible value for every single one of you, really. We've prepared a ton of content for this webinar. And by the end of this webinar, you should be walking out with a really good understanding of how to successfully immigrate to Canada and some of the major considerations you need to make. So the first topic we're going to be going over today is how to choose the best immigration program for yourself. There's about 80 plus options that are available. So we're going to be seeing how you can narrow down that list. We're also going to be taking a look at how to create a successful immigration application and also the difference between preparing your own application versus actually hiring a licensed professional. And at the very, very end of the webinar, we are going to be having a Q&A session at the end for you to be able to ask any questions that you want to our presenter of the day, Arlene. And during the webinar, stay tuned because we're going to be handing out some incredible resources for you to be able to use in your application. Things like immigration cover letters, letter of explanation templates. We're going to be sharing Canada's immigration law, which is considered the immigration consultant's Bible. And one of the things you should be super excited about is we're going to teach you how to find the resources for guides and manuals that the actual immigration officers at the IRCC, Immigration Canada, uses to look at your applications. And for those of you that stay with us till the end, we're going to be emailing you an ebook on immigrating to Canada. It's a wonderful resource that goes over every single step from the beginning till the very end. So throughout this entire webinar, feel free to interact with other attendees using chat. You can enter your questions inside of chat and we can mark it as a question and get to it at the Q&A session. So stick around till the very end and you're not going to regret it. So before I get started, I want to introduce myself a little bit. My name is Kevin, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of ImmiSearch. It's an online platform, ImmiSearch, that makes immigration safe and simple. We increase your immigration approval rates by connecting you to the perfect immigration consultant who speaks your language and also specializes in your application type. So on ImmiSearch, you'll be able to search, browse, and also book the perfect consultant, knowing that everyone's actually guaranteed to be authorized by the government of Canada. You can even narrow down your search based on your province of destination, application type, language, years of experience, reviews, and more. So, without further ado, I kind of want to move on to Arlene. She's our amazing guest speaker of the day. Her name's Arlene Ruiz, and she came to Canada as an immigrant herself. And she's the proud owner of Alexine Immigration and Employment Services, Inc. And as an ICCRC and KPIC member, she's actually been practicing immigration since December 2013. And in 2012, she took the 1-year immigration consultant diploma through the Ashton College in Vancouver, and she passed with flying colors. And since then, she's won things like the 2020 RBC Top 25 Canadian Immigrant Award. She's received the Consumer Choice Award for Business Excellence and was a finalist for the SABEX Awards as well. So without further ado, I want to welcome Arlene to the stage.
Thank you, Kevin, for
It
the
looks
warm
like
introduction.
I can't hear you.
I just wanted to make sure, can you guys hear me?
Oh, can everyone hear her?
Could you guys hear me?
Okay, I can't hear her, but everyone else can. So go ahead, Arlene.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much once again, Kevin, for the warm introduction. I am delighted and thrilled and honored to be here through the invitation of Kevin and his team with ImmiSearch. And welcome to everybody that has taken a good pie of your time to participate in this webinar. Stay tuned to the very end where we have prepared some relevant information to you guys that are going to be valuable to your intent in immigrating to Canada. As Kevin has mentioned, I am a licensed immigration and regulated immigration consultant, been practicing since 2013 and really just helping my clients navigate the complexities of the Canadian immigration system and just holding their hands in the process of making Canada their new home. So once again, thank you, Kevin, for the introduction, and welcome to our attendees today.
For sure. Now that I've introduced you to Arlene, let's jump straight into the actual webinar content. So the first topic we're going to be going over is how to choose the best immigration program out of the 80 plus programs that are available. I think over all my years in Canada, what I've come to realize that immigration is all about proper planning and strategy. There's over 80 different immigration programs, and with the right plan and strategy, even somebody that's not eligible to immigrate right now will have a potential path to call in Canada their new home. But at the same time, having over 80 different immigration programs can be a double-edged sword because it's that much more complex to actually assess your own eligibility for these programs. I mean, when you take a look at the slide right in front of you, we couldn't even fit the names of every single program on this slide. So, Arlene, can you tell us a little bit more about how our webinar attendees today can narrow down the list from over 80 different options to something that's a little bit more manageable?
Well, choosing the best immigration program is really a part of creating a strong plan and strategy. There are two great ways for you to narrow down the list and understand your options. So the first one is to understand the different classes of immigrants. And of course, the second one is to decide where you want to live in Canada. So in Canada, there are 4 classes of immigrants. And every immigrant will fall under either the economic, the family, the refugees, and the other class. So let's get an understanding of this, because understanding the categories, you can eliminate options that you will not be eligible for. So we're going to touch first on the economic class. So these are, as shown on the slide, either the express entry, the PNPs or provincial nominee program, the business, the agri-food, and the caregiver. So in 2019, economic immigration accounted for a staggering 58% of all permanent residence admissions in 2019. And also, the vast majority of immigration programs fall underneath the economic immigration. So this includes immigrants who have been selected for their ability to contribute to Canada's economy. You can think of workers, business owners, and investors. Okay, and the second one is the family class. So family reunification is one of the objectives, the main objectives, or the pillar of the Canadian immigration system. And it accounts for 26.7% of all permanent residence admissions in 2019. So this class includes immigrants who were sponsored by Canadian citizen or permanent residents based on their relationship, either as a spouse, as partner, parent, grandparent, child, or other relatives. And then the third one is the refugee class. So refugees and protected persons made up actually of 14.22% of permanent resident admissions in 2019. This class includes immigrants who were granted permanent residence based on a well-founded fear of returning to their home country. This could be fear of, based on persecution for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, perhaps preference on sexual orientation or political opinion, as well as persons who had been seriously and personally affected by civil war or armed conflict, or have suffered a massive violation of human rights. So that's really where the refugee class falls under. And then, of course, others. When you think of others, like what comes to your mind? Well, it's basically programs that do not fit under the economic or family or refugee classes. And this in 2019 made up for a very insignificant, but still 1.37% of permanent residence admissions in 2019. An example of this is the humanitarian and compassionate consideration class. These are people who would not normally be eligible to become permanent resident. So depending on humanitarian reasons, these people may be able to obtain permanent residency on a case-to-case basis. So there has to be compelling reasons under this humanitarian and compassionate ground. So yeah, those are the 4 classes of immigrant students.
Amazing. Thanks for the great explanation on the 4 classes. In most cases, you're going to be able to take a look at the information that Arlene's gone over, and you'll actually know what class of immigrant you're actually going to be. Simple questions like, do I have family members living in Canada that can sponsor me? Am I going to be a refugee or a protected person? Or do I bring economic impact to Canada? It can really help you start narrowing down the list of different program options that are available for you. Do keep in mind that you can be eligible for multiple different classes. So this exercise right here is meant to help you visualize the programs that are available. What we're going to be doing right now is we're going to be sharing a document with you that you can download directly through the webinar platform. And it lists out all the 4 programs and the different categories of immigration programs that are available underneath it. So feel free to download that. And you'll be able to utilize it during your application process. Did we share that, Eva? I'll share it. So I've shared it so you guys can download it all you want, and you'll be able to take a look at all the different programs available for you. So Arlene, we know that the second part is you mentioned that deciding where to live is also very important in narrowing down your program options. Would you mind explaining a little bit further why it's so important to choose where in Canada you want to live?
Absolutely. So you saw that the economic immigration makes up for over 58% of all permanent residency admission in 2019, as I had previously mentioned. This is also reflected in the number of economic immigration programs. And really, the vast majority of immigration programs available in Canada are economic. This is because of I think the provincial nominee program is probably one of the most famous stream And like this name suggests, these programs are province specific. So for instance, Saskatchewan has Saskatchewan Immigration Nominee Program, BC has BC Nomination Program, Alberta Immigration Nominee Program, etc., etc., etc. So this means that every province has their own programs, and you must, the key word there to remember is you must intend on living in that province to immigrate through the provincial nominee program. So this is why it is important to think about what province and what city you would want to live in Canada. When I meet people who are interested in moving to Canada, more than half of them have no idea where they want to live. They would simply say, Arlene, bring me to Canada. It doesn't matter where. Well, they let me know that they are interested in moving anywhere, really, but this is far from the truth. When we discuss things like climate, which is probably one of the biggest, factor when deciding where you want to live, it's a very interesting topic to discuss with potential clients. Career opportunities, cost of living. I mean, if you want to live in Vancouver or Toronto, those are two of the bigger cities in Canada. So expect that the cost of living would be a little bit more in comparison to Saskatoon, for example. Community, transit, and health, and more to decide what are must-haves and versus nice-to-haves. Most people are quick to eliminate several provinces in their list. So depending on what the individual's preference. Canada is the second largest country in the world, and the considerations I just mentioned vary far and wide between provinces and municipalities. By removing the provinces that you are not interested in, really you may be able to narrow down on a handful of programs that you should consider. So, I mean, looking at this map, I mean, there are several provinces in Canada. So doing the research as well would really help, you in narrowing down where you would want to live in Canada.
For sure. Now, we've given you kind of the theory on how you can narrow down your list, but we do understand by giving you this theory, it's hard to implement right away. So we actually went through the effort of creating a 3-minute program finder utilizing some of the same logic that Arlene went over today. So all you need to do is actually answer a few basic questions, and you're going to actually receive a full list of immigration categories with links about those programs that you can consider. The link to this tool right now is going to be shared with you on the chat, and it's also available on the document that you downloaded in the previous slide. So feel free to use it whenever you want. It gives you descriptions of the different programs available, and you'll be able to kind of narrow down your list and be able to take into consideration what are the top 6 options that I should be taking a look at or something like that. Yeah, no worries, Mo. So before we actually move on to the next topic, I'm really interested to know a little bit more about the attendees here today. We're going to be sharing a poll. And I want to know if you're just beginning to think about immigration, if you know what programs you're going to be applying under, or if you're actually going through the process right now and joining. Interesting. I see all the answers coming in. And the results are public, so you can see it with me. Looks like we have a pretty good mix of different people. Some people just thinking about it, getting started, and going through the process. Very interesting. I'll move on from here. Let's talk a little bit about how to actually prepare a successful immigration application, because this is actually going to be one of the most important things for you. In this section, we're going to be going over immigration strategies, and we're also going to be giving you the templates and resources that you need to make a successful immigration application. We're not going to go specifics in terms of taking a look at every single program option that's available, but we're going to be giving you specific universal strategies that you can use on practically any application to significantly increase your chances of approval rates. So speaking of planning and strategy, I want to show you some of the statistics that came from Immigration Canada to actually show you how important creating a good strategy is. So between April 2019 and March 2020, IRCC, which is Immigration Canada, they received over 3.7 million applications. And of these, 1.1 million were rejected, making the average rejection rate over 29%. That's actually almost 3 in 10 people that submit applications getting rejected. I'm not sharing this number with you to scare you, but just be sure that when you are preparing your application, you need to put in an intentional effort to increase your approval rate. It's not just preparing the bare minimum, submitting something and hoping for the best. Arlene, would you mind telling us a little bit more about some of the best practices in actually preparing a strong application?
So yes, yeah, a strong immigration application starts with a strong, solid understanding of the Canadian immigration, its objectives, and its procedures. Um, a well-rounded knowledge of the immigration system is going to help an applicant significantly increase their chances of getting a desirable approval rate. This will help you create a solid plan and strategy. So let's start with what is commonly referred to as Kevin has mentioned earlier, the Bible of the Canadian immigration. So the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act, also known or otherwise known as IRPA. This is Canada's immigration law. This is a great resource to understand the objectives and the intentions of the Canadian immigration system. When you read through the objectives of IRPA, you'll begin to understand why Canada has the 4 classes of immigrants, namely the economic, the family, the refugee, and the others. It will also give you important information about why you might be inadmissible to Canada when it comes to reasons of public health, public safety, international justice, perhaps, security, criminality, and many more. So another amazing tool that would actually help you prepare your application is something called the operational manual, guidelines, and program delivery instruction. So these are actual resources that visa officers, Canadian immigration officers, and border agents use for guidance in conducting their duties. So when you come to the airport at the port of entry, the CBSA officers actually use this manual in determining entry or not entry for somebody. When used properly, these resources can be incredibly useful in your application. So if you spend the effort, like Kevin has mentioned earlier, intentional effort to read through the resources we've spoken about today, you'll be able to find potential errors or areas of weakness that you can significantly improve so that you receive the favorable result at the end. Remember that in immigration, you, the applicant, must prove you meet all the requirements. So the onus is on the applicant to convince and satisfy the visa immigration officers that you are worthy, to be allowed to be entered in Canada. The other way that you can improve your application is utilizing the cover letter or the letter of explanation. In my opinion, very few people have perfect applications. You may have gaps in your history. Maybe you can't obtain certain documents or have application specific that may raise questions or concerns from the officer. At the end of the day, we're all human, right? However, if most people, unfortunately, many people rely on 100% on the checklist and fail to touch up upon weaknesses in their application. This is where cover letters or letter of explanation is vitally important in the application submission. The cover letter is a summary of your immigration application. It is optional, but an extremely useful tool that can aid the immigration officer in quickly understanding your application. Some key components include your personal information, what program you are applying under, how you meet the eligibility criteria, and any other considerations you are asking for. If you've identified that a specific part of your application has a likelihood to raise questions or concerns, you should submit a letter of explanation. Of course, along with supporting, documentations or proof. Keep in mind, evidence is very, very important. Think of it this way: if there is no proof, it never happened. You can even include previous court cases that may be relevant to your application, those type of things. However, a word of caution is to be strategic when it comes to using letters of explanation. Giving more information than what's listed on the checklist can help support your application. But that doesn't mean that you should throw everything you have at the immigration officer and hope something is useful. Remember that the key element is to remember that minimizing the immigration officer's work by providing relevant, and I think that's the key word, relevant strategic information that can lead to a faster and streamlined application process. So I think Kevin is going to be sharing the LOE, or the letter of explanation, and the cover letter. But really, those are some ways that you can improve the chances of getting the favorable result on your application.
Thanks so much for going over that, Arlene. And yeah, we just shared the letter of explanation template as well as the cover letter template. So you can feel free to download all of those, and you'll be able to actually just change some parts of it and include it in your actual application. So it's super helpful. Do download it for sure. It'll be very helpful for your application. So I know we've mentioned a lot of things, and it can be a little bit overwhelming with the amount of information here. Immigration is so important in our lives, but at the end of the day, everyone needs to agree it's all law and it's all dry. So let's do a quick recap on what we've discussed. We've spoken about narrowing down the potential immigration programs by understanding the 4 classes of immigrants available, and also by narrowing down based on what province you want to move to. Just by doing this, you should be able to really narrow down to a handful of different options. If you actually have more than 10 options available to you, you're doing something wrong by saying, I'm going to every single province in Canada. So don't do that. You're going to end up having to read, 20 million pages of information, and you'll give up on your dream of coming to Canada. So really research what province you want to move to, narrow down, and go based off of that. Secondly, we also talked about some of the valuable Canadian immigration resources that are available. So like Immigration Refugee Protection Act, which is Canada's immigration law. We spoke about the manuals and operational guides that officers actually use in processing your applications. And don't worry about writing all of this down, because at the end of this webinar, we're also going to be sending you a list of all the resources with links. So you're not even going to need to try and search this up or anything, links to everything given to you. So don't just blindly trust checklists that the immigration officers give you or the website gives you, but really try to understand, what is it about my own application that's compelling to let me into the country instead of weak? By really determining these different factors, you're going to be able to utilize the letter of explanation that I just shared with you, as well as the cover letter, to aid the immigration officer in making a really informed decision about your case. So let's move on to the very last topic of the webinar. What's the actual benefit of hiring a licensed immigration consultant? Before we do move on there, I want to do a quick poll. Who's actually preparing their own application versus planning on maybe hiring a professional? Let's see what people think. So we just shared the poll with you. So answers coming in. So yeah, this is really interesting, because I'm seeing the numbers come in, and it's actually very reflective of what is happening in terms of immigration. When I take a look at the numbers that are given to us by the government, it's quite similar in the fact that around 20 to 30% of people actually want to hire an immigration consultant to help them. whereas around 60 to 70% of people want to prepare their own application. So this information is going to be really wonderful for you because it's going to help you understand, should I hire a consultant? Should I even consider it or not? Um, so when I actually speak to people about immigration consultants, they come back to me and they ask me, they're like, Kevin, what's the actual benefit? Aren't I literally giving them money to fill out some paperwork for me? That's the general consensus that people have. So I'd like to kind of go over what it is that immigration consultants do bring you. The first thing I want to go over is education. So immigration consultants in Canada need to graduate with the immigration consultant diploma. After they do receive this diploma, they actually need to pass another exam with a body called the Immigration Consultants of Canada Regulatory Council to actually become licensed and to be able to operate in Canada. They study all of the material that we went over today, and they actually go down to every single word, plus more other documents, tens of thousands of pages of immigration material. And even after becoming licensed through all this process, immigration consultants are required by their own regulations to continue to take courses every single year to ensure that they're providing you with the highest quality service and that they're up to date on the recent changes of immigration. So that's one significant thing. The second thing is experience. So beyond the education that they actually receive, consultants like Arlene, she's been, working for years. She's had hundreds of clients. By working with people like Arlene, you'll access the years of experience of building know-hows that you're not going to be able to find online on forums or websites or blogs that naturally have misinformation because it's people that have gone through the process but haven't studied it sharing what they did. And sometimes it may work, sometimes it may not, but the consequence might be severe. This allows immigration consultants with the experience to be able to act really fast and plan for steps ahead so they can see ahead and see some things that might be able to go wrong and be able to create plans around how to deal with it when it happens. Take using case law, for instance. We mentioned this a couple of times throughout the webinar. Immigration consultants, when they submit applications using letters of explanation, they'll look for previous court cases that happened in Canada to put inside the letter of explanation as an example to convince the immigration officer that, hey, take a look at the laws that the Supreme Court of Canada made to say this is not just. So take a look at this application. Please consider these facts and give this person an approval. So things like this are things that immigration consultants are able to do. It's not really easy to do because you need to be very careful on what type of court cases you find because it may end up just damaging your application completely. The third thing, which is probably something you're all really interested in, is success rates. You might be wondering, what is the actual average success rate for hiring an immigration consultant? So we actually submitted something called an ATIP to the government of Canada to receive data that they have on this. So taking a look at the two largest classes of immigrants that I'm sure most of you are in, the economic and family class. In 2020, immigration consultants had 97% approval rates for economic programs and 94% approval rate for family class programs in Canada. So this is even though immigration consultants actually regularly take complicated cases over just regular ones. So when you take a look at this, it gives you a peace of mind knowing that they do know what they're doing and they can actually significantly increase your chances. The last thing I kind of want to go over, which is the main reason why people do choose to do it themselves, is cost. Cost is a really interesting one because depending on the experience level of the consultant, as well as the type of immigration application, the price of hiring an immigration consultant can go from hundreds of dollars all the way up to several thousands of dollars. And because of this, many people do choose to prepare their own applications to save money. But something they don't typically consider is how much time do I need to personally invest to actually prepare my own application and have a good enough understanding of immigration to be able to do so. Remember in the previous slides that we covered, the average rejection rate between 2019 and 2020 was around 29% plus. a rejection rate on your application can actually end up meaning so much more than a loss of like application fees. It can be months or years of lost time while you prepare it, submit it, wait for them to make a decision. It can mean rescinded job offers because you're not able to make it in time to Canada. You might not be able to attend your dream university anymore. And it can mean the losing your dream of actually even living in Canada. When you take a look at cost, there's really no right or wrong answer with this one. But if you are choosing to prepare your own application for cost alone, some of the things that I mentioned are things that you should consider. So, having said this, something that's really important for you to know is to choose the right consultant too. It's not that all consultants are going to be great for you. So the reason why I mention this is that more time goes by, I'm seeing more and more immigration scams that are happening in the industry by unlicensed immigration agents. It's a huge problem. And having spoken to hundreds of different immigration consultants as well as government bodies, what we found out is that it's actually estimated that there's more unlicensed immigration agents around the world that are doing illegal business for Canadian immigration than ones that are authorized and approved by the government of Canada. So I want to go through a quick little exercise with you just to show you what I mean. When you take a look at this website, does this seem legitimate to you? Type in chat literally what you think. Would you hire this person? Would you consider it? Would you look at this website? Well, at the end of the day, it's 100% a scam. Take a look at this website, for instance. 5,000 customer regulated agents. Do you think this is an immigration consultant? Nope, it's not. And then what about this one? This is a Canadian government website, right? You click English, you go in, you take a look at different programs. Nope. It's a scam that illegal immigration businesses are creating to scam you into paying them money. And an actual feedback that I received from one of our customers before was they paid somebody several thousands of dollars to move to Canada. It took them years, literally years. And they prepared everything. They sold their home, they packed up, and they were ready to come to Canada. And they realized not a single document was actually submitted to Canada. And they were rejected. They couldn't even come into Canada. They had to return. They wasted tens of thousands of dollars. So this is really important for you to really take a look at. Some people end up hiring these scammers and illegal businesses because they're tricked. But some people end up hiring them because they think they're going to be cheaper, which is usually not the case because we see a lot of cases where illegal businesses tend to charge you way more, tens of thousands of dollars. What you need to understand is that hiring these people is actually illegal in the eyes of Canada. Never mind the rejections, delays, or being separated from your friends and family. Or even losing every single cent that you own in an immigration scam. We've actually seen people who've had their applications so complicated by these people that they were banned from returning to Canada for 5 years. And there's a specific word for this. It's called misrepresentation. It's whether it's intentional or unintentional. If you provide information to Canada that is a misrepresentation of what your actual situation is, you lie or you miss a file or anything like that, they can give you a 5-year ban from returning. Arlene, is this something you've seen as well with your clients as you've been practicing?
That to see some people would come to me and say, I paid thousands and thousands of dollars and the application isn't going anywhere, only to find out that they were dealing with, a not legit consultant. One thing to note though is when you hire an immigration consultant, a licensed immigration consultant, you are protected because they are regulated. We are regulated. What this means is we need to follow a set of rules and regulations. We are also bound by the code of ethics by the regulatory council. So if a consultant breaks the law, they can be held accountable. So it is imperative that when you are working or when you are in your initial planning stage and your intent is to hire a consultant to help you with your application, that you do your due diligence in doing your research and making sure that you are dealing with a fully licensed and regulated consultants. And I think Kevin and his team has done a phenomenal job with the platform, because it is a great avenue to find if you are dealing with a legit consultant, in addition to the ICCRC or the Regulatory Council website, where people can check the authenticity and the legitimacy of the immigration consultant.
Thank you so much for saying that, Arlene. And what she mentioned is exactly why we created ImmiSearch. It's actually a marketplace that connects you with licensed immigration consultants to create a safe and simple way to maximize your immigration approvals. You'll actually be able to find fully licensed immigration consultants who speak your language and have experience in the application type you're going to be applying under. You'll even be able to find Arlene on it. So you'll be able to take a look at our website and be able to find the perfect consultant. Let's do a quick little summary before we move on to the Q&A session now. I hope that you've learned that while immigration is complex, you can definitely do it yourself with really high attention to detail, time commitment, and devotion. You'll need to spend some time researching and understanding the processes and the resources that we've discussed today. You'll even be able to utilize the templates that we've given you to download to strengthen your immigration application. If you're not really confident in doing all of this, licensed immigration consultants do exist to help you make the immigration journey a little bit safer for you, simpler for you, and streamlined for you. They'll help you achieve your dreams in the most efficient way possible by utilizing all the education and the experience that they have to increase your approval rates. We know that the immigration process is a daunting process, and we do want to say thank you so much for joining the webinar and want to congratulate you on showing your commitment by joining the webinar today. To show our little token of appreciation, we do want to give you something for being such great attendees. Arlene has been gracious enough to actually offer $50 off of her initial 1-hour consultation. And the regular price is usually $200. But for the next 48 hours, she's lowering it to $150. That's 25% off. So I just wanted to say, Arlene, thank you so much for sharing this offer. And I'm sure this is going to be super helpful to all of the attendees here today.
Thank you, Kevin,
Arlene.
and Eva, for having me today. It's been an honor having me here today to just kind of share my insights, my thoughts on the whole immigration process and how people can improve their chances on becoming permanent residents of Canada.
And remember, everyone, that this offer right here is only going to be available for 48 hours. So use the code 50OFF and book a time on our calendar now if you are interested. It's a super low price to actually consult with somebody of Arlene's level of expertise. You should see a pop-up on the bottom left-hand corner that's going to take you directly to her booking page, where you can send her messages or book directly with her. So if you just wanted to send her a message to see if you wanted to book a consultation with her, to see if she believes she can help you with something you have a question about, you can feel free to do so. All you need to do is click it and it'll take you directly to her profile. You know what? Let me actually show you what that's going to be like. I'm going to stop sharing the slide and I'm going to share my screen. So when you go to Arlene's profile, you'll be able to see her profile, a little bit about her, what her specializations are, how much experience she has, where she's located, and her language. And if you want, you can message her directly by sending chat messages to her. But if you wanted to book a consultation with her, you press book, and it'll pop up a form for you to fill out to be able to connect with her. So basically on this form, you'll be able to take a look at her calendar, choose a time, apply your discount code, and be able to choose the type of meeting and submit a request. So that's something you can do right away to be able to speak with her. And yeah. We're also going to be sending everyone that's been here so far an ebook on actually immigrating to Canada. It's a wonderful resource that's more in-depth version of the webinar we've had today with links to every single thing you can imagine. We're going to be sending this out to everyone that's actually subscribed to our newsletter, because it is going to be sent out by email. So if you haven't already done so, please do sign up for our for our newsletter. And we're going to be sharing the newsletter link, subscribe button inside the chat. So please, please, please subscribe, and you'll be receiving that ebook along with other resources as well as the recording. While that's going on, I think Eva already shared it, but I want to ask all of you how much you enjoyed the webinar today. Please vote and let us know how likely you would be in actually recommending this webinar to somebody that you know. Oh, thanks so much. Looks like everyone's pretty happy with the webinar today. So thanks for doing that. So let's actually dive right into the Q&A session. It looks like we've received multiple different questions. So we're going to take about 15 minutes and have Arlene help answer these questions. Yeah, the first question that we have today is, will a 2-year program be enough to apply for permanent residency? I think we'll need a little bit more information in what you mean by a 2-year program. But let's see, are you still here, Namrata? Yes, I'm actually going to, yeah, if you can let us know what you mean by the 2-year program. Do you mean like studies? Great. Arlene, would you be able
Well, it
to
really
deem
depends on
what
the
the answer to
program.
this
So if
is?
somebody is coming, for example, and I'm assuming that Namrata is pertaining to a study, somebody that's coming in as a student. Well, as somebody that's coming in as a student, once they are done, provided that they are enrolled at a post-grad work permit eligible designated learning institution, they should be able to apply for what we call a postgraduate work permit, which essentially is like an open work permit. And several provinces, for example, have pathways designated for students. In Saskatchewan, for example, if somebody graduated in Saskatchewan and has obtained a permanent job offer supported by a provincial nomination, they can apply for permanent residency. So if somebody is enrolling on a 2-year program, the key element to remember is, are they enrolled in an educational institution where they are eligible to apply for post-grad work permit? Because essentially that would, help them pave pathway for an immigration stream. The student stream is really one of the most famous pathway because I see a lot of students that have gotten their permanent residency through that pathway, just kind of using that as a stepping stone to get their permanent residency. So it really depends on the program that they are getting. But to be quite honest, in my experience, a 2-year program will have a likelihood of getting the permanent residence pathway of some sort.
Mm-hmm. I would say, like, I went to the University of British Columbia, and about 70% of my international students that were friends, they actually did immigrate through the study pathway. So I think that's a wonderful way. So if you do come to Canada as a student, that's also something Arlene will be able to help with. We have an interesting question that came from Charity. If I book with Arlene, can she help me with the entire express entry process? Can she discuss the whole steps in 60 minutes, the documents needed, the specific steps to take, and other important information? Maybe this is a good opportunity to kind of talk about what should be expected in an initial consultation, what you decide in an initial consultation, and what a fully
no,
service.
like with the 60 minutes, I would essentially ask for a copy of the resume, because then it will give me a better understanding and kind of help my client narrow down, okay, does this person's credential best suited for Alberta immigration nominee, or is it for Saskatchewan immigration nominee, or is it for the express entry? We might be needing a little bit more, but throughout the 60 minutes, we will try and come up with a solid determination of which pathway is best. We would look at the credentials, the experiences, the language proficiencies, educational credential assessments, which are, for most cases, like the English proficiency and the credentials assessment, in most cases, are mandatory components of a permanent residency application nowadays anyway. So we will do the best that I can with the 60 minutes time that we would have, so that you would find value and not just pay me to 150 and come out of it not thinking, well, that was a waste of my time. We'll definitely work on specifics and really narrow down which one is the best pathway for the client. And I would like to add as well that something
For
that I
sure.
do for my clients is, if they ended up securing my service, that initial consultation fee gets deducted off the professional fee as a courtesy to the clients for, securing my service.
That's really great. So if you do end up booking a consultation with her, it's usually $200, but with the discount code that we've offered you, it's going to be 150. And if you do decide to retain her services for the full application to help you from step one till the very end, she's actually going to be deducting that $150 from her professional service fees as well. So just another deal that came through. So if you are interested, book her right away. We'll move on to the next question. What is the cost of hiring a consultant for the child caregiver visa? Um, I guess it would depend, but I'll let Arlene take this question as
Like the
well.
caregiver program has changed, with the rollout of the caregiver pilot. In the past, employers, if the applicant is outside Canada, the employer is able to apply for the labor market impact approval. However, with the rollout of the new caregiver program, the process has changed. So in the past, the worker would come to Canada first, complete the 24 months experience, and then apply for permanent residency. With the new pilot program, they would apply for permanent residency together with a work permit, and upon determination of CIC that this person meets the eligibility for PR, then they will then proceed with processing the application. So it would depend really, because it's a permanent residence application. So it would vary on whether it's a single applicant or if the person is married and they have dependent children. Also, one thing to note with this pilot program is the spouse or the dependent children are also able to apply to come to Canada at the same time. So will the husband be applying, or the spouse be applying for an open work permit? Will the children be applying for either a study permit or a temporary residence visa? So all of those will factor into determining what the cost. So when we go through the initial consultation, then we could really dive in. So that's kind of how it's determined what the cost is for that path.
Mhm. Thanks for the answer. The next question that we have is a little bit more specific. I think it's Harry, are you referring to the BCPMP Tech Pilot Program?
No,
Yes.
not yet. So you
Arlene,
might
do
be
you do you
best well suited
practice
to answer
BCPMP
this
Tech Pilot?
one.
Okay. For sure, for sure. So I personally don't practice immigration, Harry. So this is something that's brings our platform up again. So our platform helps you find people that are actually specifically specialized in different programs available. There's over 80 programs available. So consultants usually don't specialize in every single program. So please find a consultant that specializes or is located in BC. And they practice BCPMP, and they'll definitely be able to help you with answering your question about the tech pilot. A question from Marcelo Hartanto. How many CRS points will you get after graduating from a DLI institution? The specific number, I believe.
I don't know
Arlene,
it at the
are you
top of
looking that
my
up
head.
right now? Yeah.
Give me 1 second here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is another important thing about working with immigration consultants is that you see how Arlene's able to quickly go online and be able to find the resources that are available to be able to answer your question quickly. in immigration, there's tens of thousands of pages of information that changes constantly. I think this ties into a question that somebody else had asked that we can get to a little bit later. But they're able to find the resources fast to be able to answer your questions and be able to really customize and personalize the application for you. Oh, it looks like Nimesh, one of the consultants actually on ImmiSearch, is with us today. And he's mentioned that it's
Thanks,
15
Manish.
or 30 points depending on the length of the study. Thanks, Nimesh, for saying that. Yeah,
Sorry, I
super
accidentally finished
exciting.
answering one of the question, and I
Yeah,
think
so
that
Nimesh is
was,
there. Um,
should we remind IRCC if the application is overdue? In my practice, I constantly check the processing time. It would not hurt to send an inquiry via the IRCC web form, which is something that I do on a frequent basis, and just kind of check on them and just remind them, hey, the specific application has passed the processing time. Could you let us know what's happening? And it has proven to be very, very effective. And really, you can email IRCC. So IRCC web form is really the way to communicate with the immigration officers in regards to specific applications. So in my opinion, I would like, and why not? The resource is there for you to communicate with IRCC. You may not get
mhm.
an answer right away. However, it's always important to be on top of communication with IRCC and just say, hey, it has passed the processing time. What's taking it so long? And in my experience, almost every time I sent an inquiry, it initiates that next movement from the visa officer. So I'd say do it.
Mhm. That's a wonderful, wonderful tip. And I know in some cases, your applications do get delayed due to some concerns that the officer might have. And sometimes something that immigration consultants will also help you with, and is a tool that they utilize to understand your application as well, is they submit an ATIP request to the government to be able to understand. They'll request for GCMS notes, which is basically the system that the government uses to keep track of everything that goes on your file. And you actually have the right to request that information. So what Arlene can also help you do is submit an ATIP request for your GCMS notes if it's way beyond normal processing times, to be able to take a look at, okay, is there anything that they found that they're worried about? Is there any information that we can see that we'd be able to help, reduce the concerns that they have? We actually have a full guide on this, and we have samples of GCMS notes that you'll be able to take a look at. I've just shared it in chat. You can go take a look. You can download the resource. You can talk with Arlene. And the only thing about GCMS notes is that it is really long, and you need to know exactly where you need to be looking to be able to analyze it properly. So even if you do get it, it is mostly recommended that you do talk to a consultant to be able to analyze and understand what the officers are saying inside those notes as well. Let's take a question from Alejandro. Immigration rules and requirements are always changing. They take update courses, but how do you assess that they understand those changes? Um, so I guess the question is that a question for Immigration Canada, or is that a question for ImmiSearch in terms of the immigration consultants that are participating on our platform? So for the consultant, I mean, they're fully licensed to be able to practice, and they're fully, competent enough to be able to practice. And they take these courses to understand the different changes that are happening and to stay up to date on all the different regulations that are coming about. There's nothing that really tests them on these new changes that come about. But something for you to keep in mind is that ICCRC, which is the Immigration Consultants of Canada Regulatory Council, they maintain a level of competency inside RCICs. And if by any chance they do anything wrong on your application, or they provide you with the wrong advice or something outside of their professional ethics, that's something they would be penalized for. It's something that they might be able to lose their license for. So they're most likely not going to, try to give you advice when they're not sure. They're not going to take your application if they're not sure. So you can,
Yeah, and can I just
there's
add
a level
something to
of
that,
trust that
Kevin?
you have by
We, by the
hiring a
code of
profession
ethics,
that's
we are
regulated
supposed
inside
to
of Canada.
maintain that level of competence. In my practice, if I don't feel competent enough to take on a specific case, so I'll just give an example, like a refugee. I mean, I'll be very honest, I have never done a refugee application. So I would check with a colleague of mine in the industry that might have done those cases. Then at least I'm referring them to somebody with utmost confidence that this specific immigration consultant could help them. I would not take on something that I'm not competent, because at the end of the day, the client's expectations are that I would be able to deliver. And if I can't deliver, then that would not be fair to the client. So there's that level of competency. And if you cannot deliver the competency, then perhaps passing it on to an expert in that field in the industry would be a best advice I would give.
Mhm. We're going to take just 2 more questions now, and then we're going to call the webinar. It looks like we have 2 questions left, one from Namrata. I was wondering, how many CRS points would we need to be eligible for permanent residency? I think part of the answer goes back to choosing the best immigration program for yourself, because CRS points are related to express entry, and express entry is just 3 different, I guess, programs, like the federal skilled worker, there's CEC, there's FST, and they take a look at your eligibility based on CRS, but there's so many other programs available. So you may not be eligible through express entry, but you may be eligible through something else. So it's important to go through an eligibility assessment. That's something I really recommend you do by booking a consultation with Arlene. Arlene will be able to help you assess what programs should I even consider first, what is my CRS score, what's my eligibility for other programs, and help
That
you
the
build a path and create a
CRS
plan
or the
towards
express
actually
entry
moving
is
to Canada
simply
and
an intake
residing here.
management system. It's not a
Go
program
ahead.
in itself. So CRS stands for comprehensive ranking score. So an individual is assessed based on several factors like education, language, experience, economic probability of establishing in Canada. All of those things collaboratively makes up the CRS points. But Kevin is right. Like, express entry may not be your only pathway. Provincial nominee program is one of the famous pathway, and quite often every province has different minimum points that you need. For instance, in Saskatchewan, it's 60. I'm not entirely sure what it is in BC, but you may not be suitable for one pathway, but there are 80 plus classes or pathways that you can apply. So do your due diligence in doing your research, and because don't be discouraged if you don't qualify for one, because that's not the end of the road for your
And then getting to the last question from Armando, he's asking, what's the average time to get a permanent residence
Masters is
for my
what,
wife
a
and
year
I if
program
we are
probably.
starting our
I'm not
master's
entirely
this
sure.
September?
But typically, like I said earlier, the student stream is the most I would say the most easier pathway, not necessarily the cheapest, because it's the international students tuition fee are 3 times higher in comparison to the rate for Canadian citizens and the permanent residents applicants. But I don't know if people are aware of the TR to PR pathway that was launched in May. Depending on what the government is really rolling out. Like, I mean, I've seen people already gotten their permanent residence from international graduates that has submitted or lodged their application day one, May 6th, right? So on an average, I would say probably, 12 months. However, with the rollout of new different pathways and with the government trying to reach the target of 401,000 new immigrants in 2021 alone, it's not impossible to see a quick transition to permanent residence once you are done with your studies.
Mhm. Amazing. We're out of time now. Remember that Arlene's offer is only available for the next 48 hours. So book with her now and don't lose out on this opportunity. I just wanted to say, Arlene, thank you so much. And thank you, everyone else, for joining today. Stay tuned for the
Thanks,
ebook and
everyone.
the
Have a good
recording as
one.
well. We're going to be sending that out shortly. Thanks, everyone, for joining. And I hope you have a wonderful day, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Bye, everyone.